Alright, what is up, hunters? It is Wuronjilong from the Farcast community. It has been a little while since our last weapon spotlight video, but this one is near and dear to my heart, that I couldn't help myself. What started as a meme in the community became an absolute dream of a weapon. There's a lot that goes into why Girros hammer is so good, so let's get into it. First, let's go into the data to show how status buildup works for hammer. Status has a 1 in 3 chance to proc every time you connect with an attack, and that proc will build up into a status taking effect. The weapon status value tells us how much that weapon will build up per proc. Since hammer is considered a slow weapon, it has an innate multiplier to how many times it needs to proc that status. Hammer proc status 2 times per hit and compared to something faster like sword and shield. The official, unofficial Monster Hunter Now Discord, no, not that one, the other one, has been collecting data on status application for a while now. This chart here is for paralysis. For a 10-star monster, a monster that is not weak or strong against paralysis needs 6 procs with hammer before it applies. I'll refer back to this table again, but I'll go over the relevant portions, so it's okay if you get lost just looking at it. Next up, Gyros hammer has existed since the launch of the game, so why is it suddenly broken? Well, that's because hammer-style water strike completely broken with paralysis. When Gyros hammer became enhanceable, the hammer was an absolute standout among the rest. Though the gun lance has always been pretty good on its own, unlocking Water Strike will completely change how you play hammer. Water Strike style does 2 things. The namesake Water Strike, which is a counterattack for the hammer. The input is holding on the screen and then swiping down. The timing is a little tough, but if you Water Strike an incoming attack or a roar, you will trigger Water Strike, and if you tap again, you'll go into the Golf Swing counterattack. If you hold your tap from there, you'll charge straight into your Charge 3 Spinning Bludgeon. This will also, on that note, replace your Charge 3 with a Spinning Bludgeon instead of that Overhead Smash, which is honestly so much better. And it has an insane 21 swings before it expires, and the damage ramps up with every hit. Once you're ready to release your spin, you can get out in one of 3 ways. You could do the Water Strike input to get out that way. That will let you counter the next attack coming your way if you're still spinning. And then you could start the cycle all over again from there. You could special out of it, which is a little bit safer of a panic button if you don't think you can time the Water Strike. And then you could tap the input again to go into your Golf Swing. The Golf Swing damage also ramps up the more hits you get in with the swing, so the later you can hold it, the better, which is why paralysis is so good with Water Strike. If you wanted to super quickly apply status, some speedrunners have learned that you could just spam the Water Strike faster than you could do any attack in the game to get a bunch of para procs early. But I'm a big fan of just starting the fight, charging straight into my Charge 3, and gyroing either hard left or hard right of the monster. This will usually make the first attack miss you, and you can get well over 10 to 12 hits before the monster attacks again, leading to a paralysis if you are lucky. If you get lucky with the paralysis or even a KO early in the spin, you're basically guaranteed to get that big 21 spin into the max damage Golf Swing. Now, all that sounds kinda cute, but is it really that impressive? The build we have in the game is where the weapon really shines. First, the entire spin is considered a charge attack, which includes the final Golf Swing. Blunt Force is a skill that comes from Beototus and Lunagarin pieces. Does this make any sense canonically? Not really, but who am I to judge? It's not like there's a monster that released at the same season that is the embodiment of a giant hammer or anything. Blunt Force 5 will increase your charge attacks by a whopping 70%. Not only is this a massive buff for a 5-point skill, but this is the entirety of how Gyros hammer does its damage. Then we have the Beshotten gear that comes with paralysis exploit. Using the head and coil will give 3 levels of the skill, giving 100% damage to paralyzed monsters. Keeping up, because there's still one more skill that completely breaks this weapon. Timed Charger, which currently comes from Azor Driftstones. Timed Charger at level 5 will give your attack damage another whopping 70%, but only if you perfectly time your charge. So not only does this build have a huge uptime on paralysis exploit and a double 70% buff, the way damage is calculated, because time charge increases your attack damage, that means the raw value only. Blunt Force increases your total damage, which is raw plus element, generally. These effects multiply together. Time Charger will increase your charge attacks by 70% when timed perfectly, and then Blunt Force will increase that by another 70%, and then while the monster is paralyzed, it'll increase by 170% with Para Exploit 3. And then there's an innate para multiplier on top of that of 10% as well. In the later hits of the spin, we are looking at 7,000 to 8,000 damage per swing. And then the Golf Swing can be anywhere between 25,000 and 30,000 damage. As an alternate build, maybe you want Lock On. Gyro is not mandatory for this build to function, but you do have to sacrifice pieces for it. And then you also lose the cheeky gyro openers where you just walk past the first hit. Replacing the chest will go down 1 point of blunt force, but you can either replace that with Glavenus or Brute Tigrex. If you go with Brute Tigrex, you can make a more budget melding set with this here. Advanced attack boost is very easy to meld on, and you can just dump any stone you get into this build and hope for attack boost. But the most budget and brainless option would just be to use Glavenus with no melds. Unmelded, this build will still crush 10 stars. And Gyros Hammer isn't just a solo powerhouse. Take this bad boy into group hunts with status sneak attack 5, and you will lock down monsters just as easy as a Gunlance does. I like to roll behind the monster and then use Water Strike until triggering the paralysis, and then charging into your spin will get that second para as you are mid-spin. This is just to keep the monster locked down as quick as possible, but rolling behind and going straight into your charge will also be a good option. Some monsters like MHNow likes to just yeet off into the distance as soon as the fight starts, so that's why I start with the Water Strike option. This build here is a very good start utilizing status sneak attack and para exploit. This build a little more optimized if you wanted to smelt it. And perhaps you already have a status sneak attack paralysis set build, in which case Gyros Hammer will just fit very nicely alongside it. Adding a few points of build-up boost alongside para exploit will carry the damage so hard in addition to just locking down the monster. I've been running something similar in 10-star MHNow Huntathons, and it feels great. The only thing that ever kills me is when it gets a fart cloud off and it blows up in my face. One more thing I want to note about Time Charger is that the timing for triggering it after the Water Strike is actually extremely tight, a lot tighter than just going straight into your charge 3. And it might take a little time getting used to it. I can't tell you how many speedruns I blew because I nailed the Water Strike and Golf Swing, but then mistimed the Time Charger halfway through the fight. After you successfully Water Strike and go into your Golf Swing, you have to hold the tap for just a moment, a little bit longer than you would expect, and then release as soon as you see yourself flash red. The timing is actually very similar to just doing your charge 1, because if you start the charge and release it, you're not going to get anything. But you have to wait until you see that red flash before you actually release. So here I've done a couple. There we go. So if you hold it but then release it, you're not going to get the charge. But if you hold it and see that red flash, oh, missed it again. If you hold it and see that red flash, then that's when it is. The timing for the Water Strike is very similar to this. The first bit of advice I would give to anyone who wants to play the build is to assemble the base gear, unlock Water Strike, and try it unsmelted. Water Strike is a massive learning curve, and after a few weeks of using it, I feel a lot more comfortable with it. But honestly, I would hate for anyone to fully assemble the build and fully smelt it with Time Charger or Headstrong or stuff, and then just realize that they hate using it. Another bit is the enhancements. If you plan on enhancing this, the first enhancement being a status buff will make your life so much more comfortable. Looking back at the data chart from the beginning, a neutral 10-star monster takes 6 procs before paralysis triggers. With a 33% chance per proc, that's about 18 hits on average. You'll have to get very lucky to get a paralysis trigger in the first 12 hits or sooner. Getting the first status enhancement will bring another 50 status buildup. In addition to the status you get from level 19 enhancement, that will drop the number of triggers you need for most monsters by 1 proc. Honestly, this is a much bigger deal than people make it out to be. The 100 raw is nice, but getting that para really early seals the deal for most fights and makes it a lot more consistent. This build does such a stupid amount of damage that you won't even miss having that 100 attack. Next 2 enhancements, I would just make that the attack buffs, may as well. I've been doing this since the enhancement buff launched, and I have multiple Girros world records as a result. Humble brag. Now this last bit is some very hot tech that I learned from watching some KO Run speedruns, so shout out to you. I said earlier that you can go 21 spins into your Golf Swing, but it's actually possible to get a secret 20-second hit before getting into the Golf Swing. If you tap the screen going into your Golf Swing exactly as you land that 20-second hit, you will Golf Swing out of it. But if you do it any later than perfectly, you will simply fall out of it. Schmorblin was helping me test this when it was discovered, and his advice to me was that the hitbox seems to favor the right side of the swing, so if you veer to the left as you're wrapping up your spin, that may give you a few extra frames to react to that 20-second spin. That 20-second spin is massive if you can master it, and it does the same damage as the 21st spin, and the Golf Swing will still do the same damage, but that last spin does between 2,000 or 8,000 depending on the build and if you have paralysis exploit active. When would you actually use this weapon? I'm gonna be honest, I do not think it's very efficient for farming. Spins make targeting specific parts pretty difficult, and it usually takes me a few attempts to figure out the water strike timing, which means I get hit a lot while practicing the weapon. Huntathons or Elder Dragon interceptions can be a good place since the monster is aggroing other players and let you get that full para and spin in. Alternatively, you can also use it in progressing urgent quests, which honestly I think this is the best place to use it. Since you can attempt urgents whenever you want, this could be a good way to brute force your way through pretty much all of them. You can really hone in on a single monster, learn the water strike timing, and max punish the paralysis. The Blunt Force Para Exploit set will easily beat every monster in the 9-star story and can even kill most of the monsters in the 10-star story with little effort. And if you don't believe me, watch me kill this 10-star Diablos in 24 seconds! This weapon has a very high skill ceiling and a pretty high skill floor. This is not the Rajang heavy bowgun, and it will not simply play itself while you utterly tap the screen. But if you're willing to learn it, it feels so rewarding to get those clear times you never thought was possible. If you're interested in seeing Girros Hammer in action, click here to find my optimized 10-star story clear. There you get multiple world records with some crazy times. And here you can find a couple of nutty world record runs I got with just an optimized build too. If you plan on crafting the set, let me know in the comments below. I would be happy to see more Girros Hammers in the wild, especially in my Huntathons. And if you do craft it and need any advice, feel free to join our Discord. I'm active in every single day and am happy to answer any questions you may have. I know my buddy Luce bombarded me with a couple of questions recently, and I was happy to answer all of them out of order. And don't forget to like and subscribe if you found this content helpful. Styles are game changers, so we can potentially put out videos like this a lot more if it's received well. For example, Ryzu could probably make a video covering the Gyros Gunlance. And Schmorblin can probably cover the Napalm Launcher, I mean the MHNow light bowgun. And one more thing we did recently, we just launched a Patreon! Woo! So, if you like what we do and want us to do it more, feel free to support us there. Just $1 a month or $3 a month, and it'll go a long way. And shout out to Spike for being our first $3 patron. Thanks for watching, and see you next time.